Hi everyone. Today I wanted to share part one of my Motherland tour. So if you're new here, my name is Christina and I'm a Korean adoptee. I waited 29 years before returning back to Asia, back to my birth country, and that was 6 years ago now. So this was from 2014. I obviously, we're in the middle of COVID-19 where I didn't travel just now, but it's given me a lot of time to reflect on this experience and this process, and I'm finally kind of ready to share this. And my main reason for doing this, honestly, is because when I was going through this back in 2014, what helped me probably the most was reading people's blogs and YouTube, like other adoptees sharing parts of their journey. And even though their journeys were very different from my own in every which way, it was so helpful to know. I don't know, it was just really helpful. So I thought if I share this, then maybe this can help somebody else who might be going through it. Like and subscribe if you want to, and let's get into it. So we flew into Incheon, and I remember the whole flight, I'm fine, you know, I'm treating it like a regular vacation. You know, my husband and I traveled a fair bit before kids, you know, once we were newlyweds and, you know, early marriage. The whole flight, I was pretty much fine. It was weird too, we had 2 legs of our trip, and because we actually flew out of Canada. It was one jumper flight to, I forget even what city we laid over in, but it was not a very long flight for the first one. And the second half was the bulk of it. It was a 10-hour or something. And we actually didn't get, I don't know why, we didn't have seats next to each other and on that flight. And we didn't even realize it, I guess, until we were already in process, in our trip. Or probably even getting ready to board, or even, I don't know how we missed this, but I remember I was oh, this is going to be kind of a long flight, you know, we can't talk, or we can't whatever. And I don't know why it surprises me so much when people are kind and good. And if you watch one of my other videos there about the grocery store, the lady at the grocery store, I mean, I don't know if I'm just I don't know, a negative Nelly or whatever you call them. I don't think I am, but I think I'm just, when people surprise me, it's surprising. I don't know. So anyway, a very, very nice lady, my husband asked her, who was sitting next to him, if she'd be willing to switch, because I didn't even think, well, we're not going to ask, because I'm pretty sure I had a crappy seat too. I think I had a middle seat or something. And I'm oh man, this, there's no way anyone's gonna want to switch for this long of a flight. And yeah, she did. And she was happy to do it. Or she acted happy anyway. She definitely didn't have to. And I remember I was so touched by it. That's kind of how my journey to Korea started, an act of kindness by a total stranger. The whole flight I was pretty fine. Getting ready to land in Korea, I remember whipping out my camera thinking well, this is kind of a turning point for me. I'm 29 years old. Thinking in myself, I just want to document this moment in time. So when this plane touches down, this is going to be my first time back to my birth country, obviously, since I left.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Seoul.
The whole trip, in a nutshell, was so much more meaningful than I could have imagined. It was weird. There was meaning in every little thing, and it sounds corny, and it is a little bit, but I was welcome to Seoul. It was the floodgates opened. I mean, I think generally I am fairly put together. I'm not easily stirred by stuff. I think I'm pretty good under pressure and that kind of thing, but none of that mattered. So I was just a mess. And we touched down, we literally hit the ground running. So right from the airport, we went to the train station, got on a bullet train, we headed to Daegu, which was my birth city, which, even though all my records say Seoul was my birth city, apparently Daegu was where I was born. And that's where my birth family lives now. That's where my birth parents lived then, and everything. So we took the bullet train, and oh gosh, I remember on the bullet train, this was so embarrassing. It was so quiet on there, you could have heard a pin drop or whatever the saying is. And I'm ugly crying and freaking like snot faced. Like, I don't know, I'm like trying not to, I was like trying not to blow my nose or trying not to make any noise because I was so weirdly freaking emotional that I don't know, people probably thought like something, I don't even know what they thought. I don't know, even my husband was like kind of like, like probably kind of freaked out, like because it's not like me to be like that. But so yeah, the whole ride there, luckily the train goes like however many 100 miles an hour or whatever it does. It was going really fast, but it was pretty quiet. Amazingly, it was very quiet in my train car. So yep, I ugly cried pretty much there the whole time on the train. We got to Daegu, checked in, dropped our stuff, and literally took a taxi to Holt Agency, to the satellite office. And we were going to meet my birth family, like right off the bat. And I planned it this way on purpose. I knew I wasn't going to be able to enjoy anything else until we kind of got this, I don't want to say over with, because it's not like I was dreading it, but I had a lot of anxiety around it. And I didn't want that to be like the end of the trip, because then it would have been in the back of my mind, like it just would have been too distracting to be able to enjoy otherwise. So we went to Holt Agency and met my birth family, and I will probably do a separate video on that because there's like too much to like unpackage there. But met my birth family. After that we went with my birth mother and father, who are married, and they were married when they had me, and my two of the 3 biological sisters, as well as one of their husbands. So it was a full house, and so it was myself, my husband, our translator that was provided to us by Holt, as well as like other agency people were like around there too. But so we met them, and afterwards they took us to a restaurant for a Korean barbecue, and like a whole bunch of extended family was there. Like we had no idea like that this was like the plan or anything. But yeah, we went along and met a bunch of my bio aunts and uncles and great aunts and uncles and cousins, and it was like this big like gathering to meet me, which was really like nice and welcoming, and it was obviously took some planning and coordination, so I really appreciated that. People were interested in meeting me, so we enjoyed Korean barbecue together. We were all just, I think, just trying to figure out like how to be like around each other and how we all felt being around each other. But it was a really like it was a really weirdly light atmosphere. So even though I'd never met any of these people in my life, like it was pretty comfortable. Like I don't know how else to explain it. So we had some amazing food and met the relatives and parted ways. Went back to the hotel, ordered, took a nap, took a shower, took a nap, did all that kind of stuff. That night, I think we ordered room service, and we actually met up with my 2 bio sisters and their husbands for kind of like a nightcap that night. And that was our first experience without translation, so we didn't have the translator with us, obviously. So that was fun and more casual of an experience. That was a challenge with the language barrier, but it was fun to kind of get to know them with just our generation, without birth parents and such. So the next couple days we toured Daegu with my birth family, so with my bio sisters and their husbands, and my birth mother and an aunt. And we saw a Buddhist temple. They brought us to a beautiful temple that was in the city, or just outside the city, I guess. And they're not Buddhist, they're Christian, but we were just seeing the sights, and it was really surreal to just like be walking around with your birth mother and birth sisters, and everyone around you looks like you. And yeah, it was really, really, obviously an experience I never had. We also saw all of their homes. I think I mentioned this in my other video. So interesting to see how everyone lives and how they eat their meals and where they sleep and all that kind of stuff. It was really, really fun and interesting to kind of get a peek into everyone's lives. So I went back to my birth parents' house, and my birth mother had prepared this like amazing meal, and it was delicious, and it was like so like nice of her to do that for us. And she's obviously an amazing cook, and I think that, you know, I hope that one day she can teach me like how to make something Korean, or like I'm always really interested in this, actually, into like Korean food. And I was just texting actually with my other birth sister the other day because school just started. So like school just started here in the States, and my daughter just started kindergarten, and she's eating the school lunches, you know, and she likes them fine or whatever, but it's just like, oh my gosh, the difference in like Korean. So I texted my birth sister, and I was like, oh, well, like what does Bohyun eat for lunch, or, you know, what do you pack her lunch? And so she sends me pictures, like screenshots of like her school lunches, and they look amazing, and they look like restaurant quality. It's like all like fresh whole food, you know, like actual vegetables and actual you know, like rice and whatever. And then like here's like our school lunch, like American school lunch, and it's like chicken nuggets and goldfish crackers or whatever, you know, and it's all so processed and so kind of yuck. But anyway, so yeah, obviously my birth mother is an amazing cook. Have a meal in their home, the home that I would have like grown up in and lived, and just to be one of them, I felt like such obviously such an outsider. Like I didn't feel like I belonged there, and I wasn't really one of their group, obviously, but we felt really welcome. I was so glad my husband was with me too. I feel like that was really helpful, and a little less lonely, like, because even though you're surrounded by people, like, you know, you don't fit in, and you don't like truly fit in, and it's hard to talk to anybody through translation, and it's just so, I mean, parts of it were messy, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the birth separate video, but Daegu was an experience, and it was really weirdly emotional, and like not just with the birth family stuff. And that's what surprised me, is like I expected to feel something with the birth family meeting and with all of that, what that entailed. But what really surprised me was my overall reaction. Like, it's not like it wasn't a conscious reaction. It wasn't anything that was staged or inorganic or anything like that. It was like truly uncontrollable emotion, and it wasn't all just like bawling my eyes out or like ugly crying. It was literally like taking a step back from every little experience, and almost like pausing the world. Just be sitting in a restaurant or a cafe or something, and I would just have to like literally just take a moment to take it in all over again. And I mean, it was an amazing feeling, but at the same time it was a little bit like sad too, because as much as I don't know, what am I trying to say? Like, because like it was really reaffirming that it's not like I could ever just go back to Korea. I mean, I guess I could, but it's not like I would just slip back into society and life would just be easy and whatever, because it wouldn't be. And I know adoptees who have gone back and have learned the language and all that, and that sounds awesome, and I think that that's great for them. But realistically now, you know, with a family and with kids in here, and our families are here, I mean, that would just never really be on the table for me. And I don't even know if that I would want it to be, but I just know, like, it was a little bit sad. Like, I just knew I just didn't fit in. And even though I could kind of fool myself into thinking, like, if I'm sitting surrounded by people in a cafe, I could fool myself into thinking, like, oh wow, like I just look like one of the crowd here, and it's amazing. And I love that my race is not anything there. It doesn't mean anything really, the same way that it does here. Like, for better or worse, it's just, you're just normal, and I was never normal. So yeah, this was just part one. Like I said, we did four big legs of the trip, and Daegu was the birth family meeting. It was my birth city, and that was enough for that one city. So I'll talk much more about that in another video. But to sum it up, touching down, when that plane touched down in Korea, it was like it was like something changed, like something switched, and unexpected and emotional and good though. It was like very raw and good, and I guess I didn't even know that I was like missing that, and I didn't know that I was going to feel that way. So I'm so glad that I went. I'm so glad that I, you know, like birth family aside, even like taking that whole thing out of the equation, because honestly, like the most emotional parts were like not necessarily even like involving the birth family. Like there was a lot of emotion with that too, but it was different. And anyway, that surprised me. That was flip-flopped. I thought it was going to be like super emotion. I thought it was going to be like kind of like, oh, cool to see the city, cool to see Korea and whatever. And I thought that was just going to be like, that was that. But it was like the other way around. It was really amazing to just be in the country and be surrounded by Korean people. So this was really rambly. I promise the rest of the videos, I will try to be a little bit more structured. I kind of did this on the fly. So this was part 1. Part 2 will be Busan. Part 3 will be Jeju Island, and part 4 will be Seoul. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff and just kind of getting an adoptee's take on this whole journey, then stick around. Subscribe if you want to, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.